Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of 2Costa Rica Real Talk, 2Costa Rica Real Estate's podcast on all things real estate and Costa Rica. And today we're joined here by Alejandro Amador, one of our resident Tamarindo agents here in the area in Guanacaste, Northern Pacific. How are you doing today, Alejandro?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me in the podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of a rainy day here, but such is life in the tropics, so we're kind of used to that.
Exactly.
And today we wanted to touch upon the subject of lot investment here in Guanacaste. And first of all, I wanted to go back to like the initial development of Guanacaste area, like in the late 70s through like the early 90s, where it was like kind of like a no man's land. There was like a big appeal for those in the know, but at the same time, it was when the land ownership in the area really started to like kick off, and it eventually became into like this developments we know today. So how was that process of like that initial thought cutter, like the managing broker usually calls it, like kind of like the outlaw era, like if someone came here and the legends of like someone signing like a ownership like on a napkin or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty different from now. Even though developing properties, it's pretty. I mean, it takes a lot out of you as a developer. There's a lot of institutions right now. You know, we're talking about today's way of doing it. So it takes a lot of developers to go through institutions and all that before people would buy big portions of land. It would be easier to open up roads and just carve them out of the jungle and donate the roads to the municipality, and that used to be the way to do it. But now, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of red tape that developers have to go through. So finding good development properties and good developers that know how to do communities and how to cut land properly, it's pretty delicate nowadays. Yeah.
And part of that also comes with kind of like a security blanket for foreign investors as well, right? Because naturally, like perhaps the offerings aren't as amazing as cheap perhaps as 30 years ago, but at the same time, the pros come in the way that's like everything's more official nowadays.
Yeah, there's a lot of security when owning property right now. Our national registry, it's pretty strong. You know, we have attorneys nowadays that are super used to dealing with international investors every single day, every single week. So they can be really well advised on what to do and where not to get into as well. But yeah, it is pretty safe nowadays to get into a property when you are properly advised. So I always recommend to be properly advised by a real estate attorney that is used to dealing with foreign investors.
And how is that approach towards like getting that advice, towards like finding your trusted advisor in the area? What someone that sells property to investors and anyone that wants to live in the area, what are like perhaps the main things to look into someone that's going to follow you through a process?
Well, one of the main things when buying land, if we're talking about land, right? Yeah. When buying land, it's very important to measure the property, to do a proper survey study, to hire. Well, first of all, also to be well advised by a professional real estate advisor that has the network of professionals, such as a surveyor, an attorney, inspector, professionals like that, you know, that will just make sure that what you're buying it's in good standards.
And in terms of like the perception of land ownership in Tamarindo area in general, as many developments have come offering like direct solutions to living, like key in hand and such. What is the current place in the market of like lot ownership. As you were mentioning perhaps before the podcast, there's not much inventory in that sense. So how is that within the marketplace, like that demand?
Yeah, well, one of the products that is currently really stable right now are lots in gated communities. Why? Because nowadays buyers and investors appreciate the added value of having security, of having amenities, of having also a good location, of course, of having proper roads and even a wastewater treatment plants in the community. So yeah, the demand is really high for such properties. It's probably lower in certain communities with end products. Let's call it 4-bedroom houses, three-bedroom houses. Those are products that are selling less, if I would say. But lots in gated communities, they're currently really strong, really high. That's what we're looking forward a lot to represent the new project in Avellanas called Pochote Hills. We will have 41 lots. They will be gated. It will be a condominium of lots with infrastructure, cemented roads. We will have AAA ocean views. Another section of lots without a view, excellent location, and very importantly, a very strong market price. So they will be a price to sell, and we've studied the market pretty well with our experience and past sales and all that, and we are confident that these lots will be this community, it will be very successful. Yeah, and we are expecting buyers to be families from the area, right, that are looking for the things that I just mentioned before: security, amenities, location, views, proximity to the beach. And also investors will also have a great chance because of the very strong market price that we will have. So we are expecting also to see developers to buy clusters of lots, and develop them as they want. You know? Of course, following architecture guidelines.
Now that you mentioned the guidelines and like basically developing how they want, I want to ask you about perhaps what's the main, what would you say are perhaps the main, not necessarily demographic, but the profile of someone that's looking to buy a lot instead of like buying the home? What do you say are perhaps the main advantages of like going that route?
Well, of course, when you're buying a lot in a gated community, you either can build right away. It depends on you, or you can wait until you are ready, until you also formalize banking financing. Some communities, however, do have a penalty also for building late, and buyers have to be aware of that. Yeah.
And beyond the lot properties within like a development, also what are perhaps the main appeal of a lot property in? Are there still like independent lot properties that get sold here in Tamarindo area, or perhaps like bigger parcels of land?
Smaller lots are very rare nowadays, especially in these hot markets like Langosta, Tamarindo. Before, just right after COVID in 2020, 2021, 2022, you would be able to find very well priced lots, but people just took advantage and snatched them off the market, you know. And also in Playa Grande, the environmental restrictions got lifted, and Playa Grande boomed. And nowadays it's an area, it's a section of this coastline that it's very, it's very active with single family homes, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms. There are newer hotels too, but there are less lots. An area also that used to have more lots for sale was Avellanas. But in 2021, the aqueduct from Paraíso extended the lines all the way to Avellanas, and that gave water, that provided water to some areas of Avellanas. And Avellanas went also from being historically the place with no water in Guanacaste. It was famous for not having water, to now the place with water. And going back to Pochote Hills, Pochote Hills it's the result of a lot of dedication and a lot of investment to extend this aqueduct once more in another phase, and it will provide more inventory for Avellanas, because in Avellanas, closer to the beach, let's remember Pochote Hills is the first property with ocean views from the beach. So closer to the beach, there are no more lots. It's very complicated to find a lot.
And in terms of like someone looking who's particularly to establish that kind of like development or that place, as you mentioned, like when people saw the Playa Grande and snatched like the best options, hitting to struck gold in kind of like speculate in terms of like buying a big parcel of land. What are perhaps the main, not necessarily concerns, or perhaps the main points they need to take into account? You mentioned particularly water usage as one of the big ones, right?
I mean, you can have a beautiful property, ocean view, you can have a flat land, in your mind, ideal for development. You can have a lot of funding, you can have the best intentions, but if the property is not suitable for development, meaning if it has proper water on paper, from a local water association or from the government, water is the number one restriction when it comes to development properties. So water, and then that's water in, and then what about the water out, right? You have to drain properly your rainwaters. And not all of the properties have proper rainwater, how would you say, disposal or evacuation solution, such as creeks or a river. So second to the water coming in is the water going out, right? And then I would say third, it would be the profile of the developer, because like I said, you can be a person with a lot of funding, with deep pockets, very good intentions, but if you don't know how to develop a property, you are destined to hit a lot of walls in the process. If you don't know basically who to talk to in the institutions, if you've done it before, now you know who to talk to. It's pretty complicated to be a developer. I know people with a lot of gray hair and with a lot of experience that don't call themselves developers. And in this particular case of a person I'm thinking, it's pretty humbling to hear that this person is not a developer, and I know how much he knows about doing developments.
And now that you were mentioning developers, also an important part of that comes from perhaps the direct client, the ones looking to buy into a lot within a new upcoming development, for example. I guess like the certainty of knowing the developing history of the developers, or knowing like the other projects they've done, also becomes like a certainty, like a selling point in and of itself, right?
Oh, absolutely, and also from our point of view as agents representing sellers and also representing buyers, is very important, because I know that I can trust that the products will be delivered because I've seen it before. And in case of these developers, for example, of Pochote Hills, they've already delivered 2 more projects in Avellanas successfully. All of the back end, let's call it that way, the back end of the development, the legals, all of the registration, everything, it was done in a very smooth way because they have the expertise in doing it. So that gives me confidence when proposing the properties to prospect buyers. Absolutely. And it, by the same token, again, I've met more developers that I don't want to be involved with because I know that either they are dreaming too high, they will under deliver, and basically they are not pretty sure what they're talking about. And I have, with not planning to sound arrogant or something, but with the years also you learn to say no. And by saying no, you're also saying yes to something else or to somebody else. And thank God I have the freedom to say no to certain people because I just don't feel I can fully trust that they will deliver.
And that particularly is important, like in such a hot market as like the Tamarindo has been in the post-pandemic years.
Yeah, your reputation is always very important.
And I also wanted to ask you, beyond like the developer history, what differentiates like lot projects in the area in general? Like because perhaps for someone that's not very into real estate or like just wants to buy a lot property as investment, what will guide their decision, for example?
Well, depends, like not only in lots, but if you're buying finished products like houses or condos, I would say that person has to, it has to do with the goals the person has for the investment, either lifestyle or return on investment, right? And if it's because of the lifestyle, you wanna, if you wanna buy a lot and eventually to build a house and enjoy it, of course, I would recommend to get to know the area pretty well and see if you feel comfortable with the lifestyle you can have by living in the property, right? Because you're not only buying a lot, you're not buying a piece of dirt, you're buying into a lifestyle, right? How do you see yourself living in the property every day? What you would do? Where are you gonna go? Are you a person that enjoys having neighbors or not? You want to be pretty secluded. And if you want to buy or invest based on return on investment, then hot markets like Tamarindo, it's probably a better idea, right? Because of the return on investment in ocean view properties in Tamarindo, it's known to be higher than anywhere else, right?
It's customary in Costa Rica, perhaps historically you heard about like the big inheritance for like a kid or someone, like having like a piece of land as like this family legacy in a way. Even more so like with finished properties. How is that also in terms of like for someone looking to create that lasting legacy in a market like Guanacaste? What's like that appeal for them?
I'll talk for myself. Also, I bought a property in Avellanas in 2004, 2005. Later, we subdivided the property. And for many years, I thought of selling. But again, as I was talking before, we didn't have water in Avellanas, so the properties were worthless. I mean, you would be buying just dirt. It wasn't like a property, it was just dirt. You couldn't build on it, you couldn't use it. But that is to say that nowadays, I wouldn't sell my properties because it's very hard to buy properties that close to the beach. walking distance to the beach in a market that is so hot and so we can say trendy, like Avellanas. So yeah, that's what I'm planning to do for my kids, for example, to leave a couple of lots to each, and I see more and more examples of that, of families going that route, of keeping the properties for as legacy to their children instead of developing them right away.
And any final words of advice for someone looking to get into lot investment or lot properties here in the area?
To call me.
Well, how can they reach out?
Well, to go to the 2Costa Rica website. There's a lot of interesting properties in there, and just make the request, and you'll be directed to the right person.
Great. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Alejandro.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if anyone listening enjoyed the conversation, you can follow us on social media at 2Costa Rica Real Estate, and follow all our previous podcasts and all our content at 2Costa Rica Real Talk in your favorite streaming platform.